Something followed me home last night, and it won't leave. If I'd known the kind of darkness that could cling to you, sticky and suffocating like thick, viscous molasses, I would have turned back. Honestly, I should have turned back. But curiosity, that insatiable and reckless beast, got the better of me. You wouldn't think that walking home from the late shift at the diner, through those sleepy streets, illuminated only by the flickering glow of street lamps, would invite anything sinister. But then again, you never really do know. I never believed in ghost stories or the supernatural. I was a woman of reason, anchored firmly in the vivid and hard light of day, dealing with the mundane grind of bills, work, and obligations. But that night was different. It carved its way into my memory. I remember it vividly, as if it were etched in my mind's eye. A vast sky crackling with electric tension, cloaked in a dim pre-storm hue, the wind stirring the trees to whisper secrets too ancient for the living. I recalled the creeping, prickling sensation crawling up the back of my neck, dismissing it as mere exhaustion. A classic mistake. As I walked, the weight upon my shoulders grew heavier, an oppressive force that whispered of being watched. My heart raced wildly in my chest, pounding like a frantic bird seeking escape. Surely it was nothing to panic about, right? Just the shadows playing tricks in my exhausted mind, I thought. I had spent too many hours stacking dishes and clearing tables, shuffling plates and pouring coffee to the insatiable crowd. Now, the nighttime world felt dense, heavy as if it draped itself around me like a shroud. But the unsettling feeling intensified, sharpening into focus. Footsteps echoed softly behind me, and instinctively I glanced over my shoulder. There was nothing, only the deserted street, shadows stretching like long fingers illuminated occasionally by the flickering glow of the streetlights above. I quickened my pace, my heartbeat echoing in my ears, drowning out every other sound. Was it just my imagination running wild, or was the air heavier now, charged with something that felt more profound than mere humidity? In that moment, I caught sight of the figure, a blur, a mere shadow, just at the edge of my vision, lurking like a predator waiting to pounce. It melted into the darkness of an alleyway, a dark form that went silent. I stopped for a brief flicker of time, my heart hammering unsteadily. My body froze like a statue carved of fear. What was it? Someone lying in wait, or perhaps something darker, a predatory spirit? I shook it off, peeling my eyes away from that elusive spot as if denying its existence would make it disappear. Get a grip, I muttered under my breath, my voice sounding weak and tiny even to my own ears. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, as every rustle of leaves made me jump. The sensation pressed down, an invisible force holding me back, a quiet ghost of fear whispering that I should turn around. Finally, I reached my building, the familiar structure that should have eased my jangling nerves, but instead it felt like an invitation to doom. I fumbled for my keys, their jangling resonating like a bell tolling a funeral dirge. Each click of the lock echoed in the silence of the hallway once I stumbled inside. Home sweet home, or so I thought. But the sensation didn't dissipate. I locked the door behind me with a faint click that seemed to reverberate against the silence. I took a deep breath, ready to shake off the lingering dread. Yet, as I glanced up, the lights flickered in the dimness like a heartbeat quickening. It wasn't just the bulb sizzling. Something else was at play. The house lay in unnerving stillness. I turned to my typical distractions, the comforting hum of the television blaring my favorite show, laughter and playful banter, a frail veil against the rising unease that wrapped around me like a damp fog. Yet, beneath that comforting sound, I thought I heard another sound, Not the laughter or the jests of characters, but something distinct, lingering just out of reach. A whisper, so soft it could have been dismissed as the wind brushing against the window panes. Yet, deep down, I felt a gnawing prick of anxiety, dismissing it as fatigue as I sank further into the couch, enveloping myself in a blanket like a cocoon of armor. It could have been my paranoia kicking in, but I could not shake off that feeling, that knowing sensation, that something else was still there. When I ventured into the kitchen to fill a glass with water, the shadows seemed to flicker unnaturally against the wall, their forms stretching and curling in bizarre, inexplicable ways. I paused for a moment, watching them dance as if mocking me. I wanted to laugh, to convince myself this was just the dim lighting, but that laughter curdled in my throat as I caught an indistinct movement in the dark corner by the pantry. My throat tightened, and I forced myself to look away, desperately trying to convince myself it was all just a trick of the light, an illusion. Yet still, something felt palpably different. An invisible hand gripped around my chest, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. The atmosphere shifted, becoming oppressive. Unable to breathe, I rushed back to the living room, collapsing onto the couch again. I buried my face into the blanket, telling myself I was just tired, completely willing to dismiss whatever restless feelings clawed at the edges of my weary mind. Hours passed, and sleep finally began to tug me under. Yet it was no serene escape. It was fractured, distorted. Every dream was a twisted amalgamation of surreal nightmares, fragmented images of a face looming over me, lips mouthing words I couldn't decipher, eyes so dark they seemed void of warmth, life, or light. When I woke with a start, drenched in sweat, disoriented and gasping for breath, I quickly realized something felt truly off in the quietude that enveloped me. A soft, broken sound drifted through my apartment, a keening that sent chills racing down my spine. My heart froze, caught somewhere between terror and disbelief. Was that crying? I moved tentatively toward the bedroom door, hesitating to raise my hand before opening it with a creak that felt deafening in the stillness. The sound amplified, growing clearer as it reverberated through the narrow corridor. My mind raced, fueled by the dark whispers of past sorrows, family tragedies I'd witnessed, loss clinging to me like a second skin. It was the kind of sound that drew you in against your will, piquing your curiosity. I swore I was about to turn away when I saw her, at the end of the hallway, a shadowy figure curled in on herself, rocking gently back and forth in a rhythm that felt inherently wrong. I called out tentatively, my voice quivering like a fragile leaf caught in a breeze. "Hello." Her head jerked up abruptly, and the sight that met my gaze was nightmarish. Her face was distorted, lost to grief. But as my eyes adjusted to the dimness, I realized the thing before me. There was nothing there but darkness where features should have been. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, chilling my blood and paralyzing me in place. At that moment, clarity gripped me. I had called her to me. I hadn't simply brought something home with me. I'd invited it in. A shadow that had clung to me since stepping out into that night, now manifesting as a lost soul seeking solace, or perhaps seeking revenge. My body screamed for escape, but as I stumbled backward, the darkness began to swell, swirling around me like an intoxicating fog, pulling me deeper into its embrace. Desperate, I found my footing, new strength surging within me as I dashed toward the front door. I slammed it shut behind me, locking it tight, the clicking mechanism sounding like a desperate plea for safety. I hastily swung around the apartment, bolting every window and door, holding my breath as if that alone would keep whatever horror was lurking at bay. The whispering continued, an insistent, low murmur creeping along the edges of my mind, refusing to leave, entwining me in frustration and fear. Now, it follows me wherever I go, the persistent echo of footsteps trailing in my wake. I've learned to anticipate its presence, bracing myself whenever the shadows flicker, each echo reminding me of that fateful night. I cleared out my apartment in a desperate surge to rid myself of any traces of it, but the vestige seems to thrive on my fear, feeding off my vulnerability. The mirror in the hallway became a gateway, no longer just a reflective surface, but a sinister window into whatever other realm it inhabits. I've tried reaching out for help, only to discover how hopeless my predicament has become. Friends dismissed my concerns, treating them as mere figments of my imagination, mischievous pranks of a weary mind. If you were on the outside looking in, you would think I had gone mad, lost to the whispers of my own psyche. But here I am, stuck, living in unnerving reality where I can sense its gaze lingering over my shoulder, feeding on my deepest fears and insecurities. If you've ever felt something stirring in the dark, a prescient presence lingering just beyond your sight, my story serves as a cautionary tale. There's a heavy price to pay for curiosity, and the shadows have a way of demanding it. This truth, I whisper, is only the beginning, leaving me to wonder if the torment ever truly ends, or if I'll be relentlessly hunted by something that refuses to let go. If you're drawn to the whispers of the dark, like moth to a flame, then perhaps this channel was meant for you. Subscribe to The Dark Witness, but just be cautious about what you invite in, because sometimes once you've let it in, it never quite lets you go.